All right, welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into a truly wild piece of 19th century medical history. We're going to unpack a historical text that detailed an invisible, totally hidden condition. Basically, a grand unified theory that attempted to explain almost every chronic illness known to humanity. It is absolutely fascinating to look back and see exactly how early medical minds tried to categorize the unknown. And the text hooks you right from the very first line. Get this, it describes the condition as the long-unacknowledged, thousand-headed monster, pregnant with disease, the Psora. I mean, wow. Just imagine being a patient back in the 1800s and a doctor tells you that a literal thousand-headed monster is slumbering inside you. It is just a highly dramatic, captivating way to frame what the author believed was this massive underlying medical crisis that was just hiding right there in plain sight. Now, to make sense of this massive catalog of claims without getting totally lost, here's our roadmap for today. We'll start by defining this monster, look at how it hides, what exactly awakens it, examine the physical and mental symptoms it supposedly causes, and finally, unpack the medical philosophy proposed to actually cure it. Okay, let's jump into part 1, the thousand-headed monster, defining the invisible threat. So, what are we actually talking about here? According to this author's framework, this condition, latent psora, is an internal itch malady. And what's really crazy about this original miasmatic condition is that it can just quietly slumber in the background of your body for years, decades even. It doesn't cause any continuous chronic disease while it's sleeping. In fact, the author claims it's so well hidden that it can only be recognized by a connoisseur, meaning a specially trained physician who knows the exact, super subtle signs to look for. It's framed as the ultimate invisible enemy. Which brings us to part 2, the illusion of health, hiding in plain sight. You might be wondering, how can a thousand-headed monster live inside you without you even noticing? Well, the author sets up this really stark dichotomy. On the outside, you might appear completely robust. You're vigorous, patient, contented. You lead a perfectly normal, endurable life. To the outside world, you are the picture of health. But beneath that exterior, that's the latent reality. The internal itch malady is just quietly slumbering, waiting for the perfect moment to erupt. The author firmly believed that a person could easily fake out the world and themselves for years, completely masking this dangerous reality inside them. Moving right along to part 3, awakening the slumbering sickness, the catalyst. So, what actually breaks the illusion? What wakes the monster up? You'd probably assume it would take some massive, life-altering trauma, right? Actually, no. The text claims that shockingly everyday occurrences are enough to trigger a violent attack. We're talking about a cold draft or just some damp air. It could be lifting a slightly heavy box or, I'm not kidding, just reaching up high to grab something off a shelf. The author also points the finger at dietary errors, the profound sadness of grief, everyday annoyances, or what the text specifically calls exhausting allopathic medical treatment. It's pretty wild how mundane, everyday events were seen as the match that could ignite this dormant condition. To really drive this home, the author shares a very specific story. Imagine a seemingly healthy young woman. First, she suffers a terrible carriage accident and a miscarriage. But because she's young and strong, she actually recovers her health pretty quickly. She bounces back. But then comes the catalyst. She receives some devastating news about her sister falling dangerously ill. That profound emotional shock, that's what wakes up the latent psora. After that, chronic nervous disorders set in, and they do not leave. The text even notes that later on, her sister actually comes to visit, completely healed and restored, but it doesn't matter. For the young woman, the illness is irreversible. The grief woke the monster up, and according to this theory, you simply cannot put it back to sleep. Which leads us straight into part 4, a catalog of complaints, the physical manifestation. Once this thing is awake, it is relentless. The source text has literally pages upon pages of specific physical complaints. It's like a giant net catching every possible ailment. For respiratory issues, you've got things like catching colds constantly, severe asthma attacks at night, or just a constant hoarseness. The digestive symptoms get super specific, a ravenous hunger, a really peculiar craving for specifically rye bread and potatoes, and a total disgust for warm meat or milk. And for your limbs and joints, it covers everything from joints that sprain easily to a burning sensation in the soles of your feet, all the way down to just having cracking joints when you move. Basically, almost every conceivable physical problem is pinned on this one root cause. And the descriptions get even more intense. The text outlines the state of extreme, profound hypersensitivity, Imagine a condition where just a gentle touch, the simple act of speaking, or even just chewing your food causes absolutely intolerable, indescribable pain in other parts of your body. The author is painting a picture of a human nervous system that is just completely short-circuiting because this internal malady has been unleashed. Now, hearing all of this naturally brings up a pretty compelling question. Does this monster only go after the physical body? Does it strictly limit its destruction to your joints, your digestion, and your breathing? Well, let's look at Part 5, the mind and spirit. Psychological symptoms. According to the text, your mind and spirit are equally vulnerable. The author firmly links intense psychological disturbances right back to this underlying physical malady. We're talking deep melancholy, sudden unexplained sadness, or just a weeping mood where you're crying without any known external cause. It also supposedly causes entirely unreasonable fears, like a sudden paralyzing terror of fire, or of being alone, or getting apoplexy. It causes these rapid whiplash mood swings from exuberance straight into deep dejection. And most strikingly, it describes what they called the spleen, a silent mania for self-destruction that happens without any obvious prior anxiety. In this framework, there's no divide between the physical and the mental. They're both just victims of the exact same internal monster. All of these endless diagnostic criteria bring us to our final section, Part 6, the Anti-Psoric Philosophy, a Medical Rebellion. To really grasp the cure, you have to understand what the author is actively fighting against. The text comes out swinging against what it calls allopathic treatment, which was basically the conventional mainstream medical practice of the 19th century. The author aggressively blames these standard treatments for actually making the psora worse. The argument is that conventional medicine just exhausts and weakens the patient's vital force. So the standard cures of the day aren't seen as helpful at all. They are literally portrayed as a major agitator that pokes the slumbering monster. So what is the grand solution? Well, you've got the conventional allopathic cures on one side, which the text insists are improper, weakening, and merely suppress symptoms or substitute them for a worse disease. The author demands a total paradigm shift away from that, towards specific anti-psoric remedies. The insistence here is that only these hyper-targeted remedies can actually fix the latent root cause and yield a durable, lasting cure for that endless laundry list of symptoms we saw earlier. It is a full-on medical rebellion. Stop treating the surface-level symptom and start treating the invisible miasma underneath. And we wrap up this exploration with an incredibly bold historical claim. The author states, "I have on my side an overpowering analogous probability, i.e. 100 to 1, that also the individual cases of chronic disease are, yea, must also be of a psoric nature." 100 to 1 odds. The author is literally claiming a 99% probability that almost all non-venereal chronic diseases on Earth stem from this one singular hidden source. And the kicker? The text asserts this is an absolute fact, even if the patient completely denies ever having an itch infection. The framework is just entirely unshakable in its own conviction. Taking a step back and looking at this massive, all-encompassing historical framework leaves us with a really fascinating question to chew on. As medical science and our frameworks inevitably evolve, what invisible monsters might future historians see when they look back at our medical beliefs today? When people watch explainers 100 years from now, which of our totally accepted modern truths will look like a thousand-headed monster to them? It's a fantastic reminder of how our understanding of the human body is always a work in progress. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive. I hope this look into the past sparks some serious curiosity for you. And as always, keep learning.